Hey guys, this is my video on Boyd's Forest Dragon Care. These are an amazing dragon to keep as a pet. They are low maintenance and are super cool to look at. When I was setting up my enclosure and researching the species, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So I thought that I would come on here and show you guys my setup and what works best for my dragon. There are a lot of opinions when it comes to reptile care, but this is just what works best for me. So these guys are a rainforest species, so they're local to far north Queensland where it's nice and humid and tropical. So I've tried to replicate that in her enclosure. This is my little lizard here. She's about 6 months old, so she's still quite young. But there's lots of branches, leaves, vines in there for her to climb on, which replicates her natural environment. So this is my tank for her. It's 60 by 60 by 45. This is an ideal size for a baby, but I will be upgrading as she grows because she will need a bigger enclosure when she's fully grown. They do prefer a tall enclosure over a long enclosure because they are arboreal. So this is her bioactive setup, so that's just some peat moss with some mesh and some clay balls, and then also your bioactive culture. She loves this substrate as she can dig around in it, and it's also really good for keeping the humidity levels up. I've got my rock background, which I actually made myself, and I can do a tutorial on how to make those. I've got some rocks in there, lots of branches, lots of leaves, things for her to hide in and climb, and she absolutely loves it. She uses all of this enclosure. As you can see, they don't mind being handled. They don't like to sit on your shoulder like a central bearded dragon or anything, but they don't mind sitting on your hand for a little bit. I wouldn't recommend these guys for kids as they can't necessarily be played with or anything like that. They just prefer to chill out and be left alone, and you can have a look at them. They don't mind if you're around, but they don't want to be sitting on you. For diet, I feed her crickets and woodies, dusted in calcium and superfood every now and then. They don't eat vegetables, they don't eat leaves, and occasionally you can also feed a mealworm, but just keep in mind they're really high in protein, so they're more of a snack every now and then rather than an actual meal. In terms of heat, these guys like it between 18 and 30 degrees Celsius, and they can actually regulate their own body temperature based on their surroundings, which is pretty cool because not a lot of lizards can do this. So you do need a heat source if you are in an environment that goes below 18 degrees regularly, because they can develop respiratory issues. This is just me showing you how I spray the tank twice a day to keep the humidity up. But if you're in a nice warm place, then you don't actually need any heat source for these guys. In terms of lighting, I use the Arcadia Shade Dwelling 7% UVB light, which is like their natural sunlight. I also have her next to a window where she gets natural sunlight and fresh air every now and then, which is good for her. So for hydration, lots of people think that these guys have to have a waterfall to drink from. They definitely would like that, and it would help with the humidity as well. But what I do is I just spray the area that they're in with water. I spray their face, and they usually just drink it up from the log they're sitting on. And I do that a couple times a week, and it works just fine. This is what I sprinkle onto my crickets for them, so that's calcium and superfood. I do that about 3 times a week while she's young. And this is her just eating another cricket. As adults, they should be fed every 2nd to 3rd day, dusting the crickets once a week. They don't need it as often when they're full grown. So those are the basics of my setup and how I care for my dragon. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.